Hi, everybody. I'm Candid Frank, and this is Leaf Talk. And of course, we talk about other NHL teams. I've had a very strenuous day. This place snows a lot, Aaron. I've moved a lot of snow, a lot of snow. And unfortunately, my little workshop, which is in a 12 by 30-foot tent, collapsed. So now I'm starting to dig that out. I had about on the ground. I couldn't shovel everything. I have like 3-4 feet standing snow, and I'm shoveling it. My snowblower's snowed in. I can't get to the snowblower.
Have you considered a roofing torch?
A roofing torch. Melt the snow?
Yeah.
Where's it going to go? Then I'm going to have a pool.
Well, once you hit it with the torch, you can make it evaporate. It is fire after all.
That'll take a while. I guess I could make a hole, but then I would have to patch it. And I've got 3 layers of poly on the tent.
Gotcha.
Yeah, 3 or 4. But anyway, not to worry. That's not our problem of today. Our problem of today is we don't have the Leafs to talk about, but we do have Canada to talk about. And I guess the big story, Aaron, if I can, before I pull up your stuff, if I can mention, I guess the big story is the captain healthy enough to make the kind of contribution the captain needs to make? And I'm not talking about Matthews, the usual captain we refer to.
You know what? That's actually a very decent question. I guess really, unfortunately, that this will take some time to actually figure out. But given the short nature of the tournament itself, I think it should be rapidly apparent in the next couple of hours or so if the captain is ready to go or not. I believe the first game goes tonight at 8, so we've got a couple hours before puck drop, but we'll know soon enough.
Yeah, and we talk about the Leafs and the other Canadian teams, so we might as well talk about Canada in general, which is what we're going to do. And I have to say, I'm excited about this.
I have found myself getting slightly more excited about it as we've gone on. It's an opportunity here for Connor McDavid to finally show what he's got on the international stage. Sid the Kid has said that he's good to go as well, so that's going to make it particularly exciting. I mean, I think for a lot of people, the last time that something this big happened would have been Canada Cup, which would have been back in 1984, 1987, and 1991 when you had Gretzky and Mario Lemieux playing together. For other people, this could be just as potentially exciting as Paul Henderson's goal from the Summit Series back in 1972. There's a lot of parallels to be drawn here. So.
Oh, okay. Well, let me save your attachment. All right. Yeah, that's something that I find very interesting because we're at. It's funny, like you remind me of then. I remember going to school, and I guess in '72 I was 18. Was I 18? 72, 54. Yeah, 18. And I was in high school, and I made a lot of enemies because I said, the Russians are a lot better than you think. I loved hockey. I used to watch Johnny Esau and company late at night do the World Championship and watch all the Russians, the Czechs, the Swedes, the Finns, watch them all play. And they were good. And they played against Canadian teams, but they were watered down Canadian teams. They were Father Bauer was the main coach at that time when I was watching, and the teams didn't do that well. So people assumed it was just because those Canadian teams weren't that good. But I just felt that the Russians weren't going to be rolled over. And people who said it, I was, no, that's not going to happen. Don't say that. The team's got to be ready for this. And sure enough, what happened was they put down their beer from the summer, and they basically decided let's play hockey against these Russians. And, but the fantastic thing about Canadians and Canadian hockey players is when they're challenged, they know how to rise to the occasion. And, we always brag about the fact whenever a team wins the Stanley Cup, we always go, well, 16 of them are Canadian.
It's always a big cultural touchstone for us, I think, is the fact that we do export some of the greatest talent in the world. It's unfortunate that we don't actually see homegrown teams win all that often, which is really the frustrating part, I think.
Yeah. I'm at the point, any Canadian team, please.
Except Montreal. I can't bring myself to be happy for the Habs to win again, seeing as they were the unfortunate thing is they were the last Canadian team to win it, but that was all the way back in 1993, 32 years ago.
Yeah, when you think about it, that's, as much as it's a bad run for the Leafs since 67, it's a bad run for a Canadian team since 93. Because, there's 7, well, we'll take the other 6. 93 is, let's see, 7, 32 years times 6, 12, 18, 19. That's almost 200 years, 200 collective years of no Stanley Cup for a Canadian team. 200 collective years makes that 60 not seem so bad.
When you couch it in those numbers.
Well, I'm just saying, but that's what it is. Collective disappointment for Canadian hockey fans. And we give rise and allow people to say, well, I'm not really a Canadian team fan. I love the Bruins. I love the Blackhawks. I love the last team that won the cup. You get those Canadians who are just looking for it to support a winner. I don't have much respect for that. It's like on Monday, I went over to Chuck's to karaoke. On Monday, Aaron, I wore my Candid Kansas City Chiefs hoodie and hat on Monday.
How did that feel?
Oh, was I ridiculed and made fun of? But you know what? Probably not as bad as any of the Kansas City players, so I'm okay. I have solace in the fact that I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of losing. I don't like it. I do whatever I can to avoid it. I try to learn from it, but I'm not afraid of it. I'm not afraid to deal with it, and because I've done a lot of losing in my life. So that's the one thing about suffering loss. I think the best thing we can learn from suffering loss is that you can survive and you can even come back stronger. And apparently there's medical proof of that fact. You break a bone, you'll never break it there again.
Yeah, you can break everywhere else around it, just not that particular
spot. Break that spot anymore, right? Because that's what happens, right? It's strength. So, Aaron, let's talk about what you wanted to talk about. And I mean, most people don't know who he is, but if you play his voice, you'll know who he is, because the Maple Leafs continue the tradition of him during the original 6 games. He calls out the last minute of play at every game.
That's very true. I actually had forgotten about that little nugget there. Paul Morris, for those of you who grew up going to see Leafs games anywhere in between 1961 to 1999, would recognize his voice calling the goals at Maple Leaf Gardens. He was the final announcer at Maple Leaf Gardens in 1999, and it was also the first voice at Scotiabank Arena. Paul passed away this past weekend at the age of 86. He, like so many other people, have formed the foundation of and the source of a lot of folks' memories, and he'll be greatly missed.
Yeah, too bad he doesn't get a chance to. They can't have him announce a Leaf championship. You know what I mean? Like,
that would be nice.
Yeah, it would be great to hear it in his voice, just to hear his voice. And yeah, his voice distinctive. There's no way you mistake him with any other voice.
No, that's very true.
And the way he massaged the microphone, and I don't mean that physically, I mean with the way he spoke and the way his carriage when it comes to his voice. He was the perfect arena announcer. I don't think there's anyone better, and I don't think there was any technology behind his greatness, which makes him that much more special in my mind. Yeah, great man. He means a lot to my memory. Yeah, Aaron, I guess you had a chance to hear him, and I don't know how steeped in your memories he is, but he is very steeped in mine.
No, he was one of the first announcer voices that I had heard, and he was also because of the timbre of his voice and the way that he spoke and the way that he used his tool. That was, he was one of the reasons why I actually really wanted to get into PA announcing, but unfortunately haven't managed to maneuver myself into that
You got
position just yet.
close.
Yeah, you know, had a stint with the Mimico Mountaineers, triple with the junior C team, but nothing, nothing that's actually taken hold or been solid. But Paul was had one of those voices that was instantly recognizable.
Instantly.
So
Great talent. Appreciate his existence and his memory. Let's talk about Nylander, who apparently never gave any thought to play for Team Canada.
yeah, despite his Calgary roots, and one day before the much anticipated Four Nations face-off, um, he was speaking with the media yesterday, talking about Sweden's opener against Canada to this evening. They said, did you ever think about playing for Team Canada? And he said, no. As I think from when I was a kid, I was just always considering myself Swedish. So when I realized I was good enough to compete for the junior national team, I wasn't even thinking about playing for Canada or anything. Although that was an option too, if you look back at the time, because he was born in Canada, he would have been eligible to play for them.
Absolutely.
I know they asked Mitch about it too, and he seemed a little taken aback. Well, thanks for bringing that up because Mitch's team lost to Willie's team back in 2017, if memory serves. So, there's that history between those two heading into this tournament as well, which could give it a little extra spice.
Well, we'll see. This is a chance for the three Leafs that are still in it, because Finland lost their defenseman because he came up lame. He was lame before they even considered him being on the team. So there's three Leafs, and all three have an opportunity. Matthews, Marner, not so much Nylander, because I can tell you he's going to be really good in this tournament. He just excels in this kind of tournament. He's done it when he's gone. He's had a few opportunities because the Leafs get chucked in the first round. He's had a chance to go represent Sweden in the World Championships that happened during the playoffs in the National Hockey League. So, and he's been outstanding in those tournaments. So I expect him to be as outstanding as he's been there here in this one. And I'm dying to see how Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner look. That's what I'm curious, because I'm not so sure they're going to dominate, Aaron.
No, there is no guarantee that they will, and it's going to be. I'm going to be looking forward. Actually, I know I wasn't sold on the tournament as originally presented. I've been very vocal about the fact that I haven't been very excited about it, but now on the eve of it, I find myself looking forward to this perhaps with a little more anticipation than I had previously.
There's more panache in this than you originally thought.
Yeah, it's got a certain cachet to it now that seems to have been built up, and
the curiosity factor that comes up, and the bad timing when it comes to Canadian goaltending. If they would have been given another month, there's two other goaltenders that they would take rather than the three they brought.
Oh, for sure. I can believe that they might have taken different guys, but unfortunately, it just wasn't in the cards for them.
Well, their number one goalie is a fighter, and we'll see if he gets in the over/under on him having a fight during a game. That I don't know what that's going to be. Probably maybe 3-1 that he will. Not just kidding. All right, let's keep moving on here. Let's talk about, when we talk about dominance. I don't think in women's hockey there's a more dominant player, even though there's other players that have a history of being effective, but nobody since the PWHL was brought in has dominated the league as much as Spooner. Her absence was felt.
And Toronto Raptors fans have been looking forward to her return now for months. She actually got an assist in her first game back in the lineup this season. It was her first game in 275 days. Helped her and her team to a 3-2 victory. Now, Renata Fast was the one who scored the overtime winner. But Minnesota, oh, it was a fantastic goal. To see it live was even better. Michelle and I were fortunate enough to manage to find tickets to the game, and I got to say, it didn't disappoint. It was definitely an adjustment for Spooner to get back into it, and I think it's going to take her a few games to get really back to feeling like herself.
She said her timing, she needs to work on her timing.
Yeah, it was a little bit off.
For her to score, that the timing betrayed her a little bit.
Yeah, and the start of the game wasn't particularly spectacular. It was iffy, but at the end of the day, Spooner, while she may have been missing about half a step, if that, she did record 21 minutes and 9 seconds time on ice, playing on the team's top line with Hannah Miller and Daryl Watts. This is actually their first overtime win this season, which was snapping an 0-4 record in overtime and shootout games. The Frost themselves have played a league high 7 games past regulation, including 4 overtime decisions, going 2-2 in those. But this was actually an opportunity for Toronto to extend their point streak to 5 games. So glad to see that.
Well, good for them. And the PWHL hockey is waiting for you. And for those of you that live in the Toronto area, Coca-Cola Center, the exhibition, that's where it's all happening. It's still called the Coca-Cola Center, right?
Yeah, it's the Coca-Cola Coliseum still, so that hasn't changed.
Yeah, Coliseum, my bad. All right, let's talk about the PWHL as a little more and talk about both Bilka and Nurse being out significant amounts of time, Aaron. Why?
Well, this was unfortunately what turns out to be a worst-case scenario for the PWHL. The league took a week break for international competition, one of 4 international breaks on the calendar, but unfortunately this one here came with a bit of a cost. That cost was long-term injuries to 2 of the PWHL's top stars. There would be Henna Bilka of the Boston Fleet, who are their 3rd leading scorer and the 4th overall pick in the 2024 PWHL draft, and Sarah Nurse, who was also the 3rd leading scorer on the Toronto Scepters, playing as the team's first-line center. She got a lower body injury after colliding with Toronto teammate Jesse Comfort in Game 4 of what they're calling the rivalry series. Now, international play is built into the PWHLPA's collective bargaining agreement, but the rivalry series itself is not named. The collective bargaining agreement section 10.5, entitled International Participation, states that the league shall permit any player who qualifies to participate in the Olympics, IIHF World Championships, or other international tournaments or competitions. But the rivalry series is not a sanctioned IIHF event, counting towards rankings. So it's kind of out of scope, which makes things a little bit difficult, because this is a tournament that was set up to showcase the best of the best, and it's knocking out the best of the best.
Absolutely. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So free agency's rolling now. So what do you think, Aaron? Who are the winners and losers in free agency?
Well, starting on the west and working our way east, the BC Lions, I think, have had a decent free agent period so far. The younger and ever aggressive back end. They also signed Adam Auclair and Adam Konar. Also Matthew Betts up front. The linebacking core is going to transition smoothly from Bola Combo's retirement for sure. The Elks, they look like they had a decent one. The highest grade of any team, basically, due to the positive momentum of Mark Killam's hiring. They brought back Jake Seresna, who's traded away in the Curly Gittins deal. Also got Robbie Smith and Jared Brinkman. They added David Beard, Keon Julian Grant, Terrell Ford to partner with his brother Trey. They got Royce Metchie to patrol on the back end, and punter Cody Grace. The Calgary Stampeders. Sorry, go ahead, Frank.
No. That's Edmonton's my pick as the winner this year so
far. Oh, yeah. Far and away, they look like they're ready to run away with everything. Calgary got Dominique Rhymes and defensive back Damon Webb from Ottawa. Add in Derek Moncrief and you get a revamped roster, a slightly tweaked roster that's ready for a run at the West Crown. You got the Roughies, who, the Saskatchewan is basically going to try to run it back after a very successful first year under Corey Mace. But they have also got Eugene Lewis and Kenny Lawler in there as well, so that makes it interesting.
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
You're definitely looking forward to those games in Toronto, Frank.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
And so the Bombers, unfortunately, I think are probably turning out with the worst grade here, mainly because they had to get rid of Lawler and Big Hill.
I give the Argos the worst grade. The worst grade of losing players, but they didn't lose the most important players. Their linebackers and their quarterbacks.
Well, they.
Aaron, I don't know if you froze or I froze, but somebody froze.
I think we're all caught up now.
Okay.
Hamilton, they're
a team, not as good as Edmonton, but they've done some nice moves.
Oh, for sure, especially with Taiwan Garbett, Brian Cole II, and Miles Fox. Those signings could be huge come the end of November. I know that there's been a lot of concern around the Argonauts, but they did bring back Wynton McManus. Mm-hmm. They've also got Bruno Labelle alongside Anthony Lanier II, who's coming back from Saskatchewan, supposedly. Not to mention, having Deshaun Amos, Robert Priester, Brinkman Smith, Adeleke, Sopik, McKellar, and Mechie.
A couple of great cups that aren't here.
Yeah.
But you know what? The Argos have been able to do. My favorite word in Canadian football, not because of the quarterback, but just because you have to be able to pivot.
Yes.
In the Canadian Football League, you have to pivot. Every year you gotta sign guys, and you're gonna lose guys, and you're gonna make your cap.
Nick has been having some issues, but he's back.
Yeah. Sure. So pivoting is everything. Mm-hmm. And they signed their 2 Grey Cup champion quarterbacks, MVPs. And the guy that started last year, they just signed him. Duke started last year. Kelly won the Grey Cup the year before. Arbuckle won the Grey Cup and was the MVP this past year. And my feeling about quarterbacks, I think that's the most important position you can fill and back up. You need to really have 2 really good quarterbacks because you full well know you're not going through a season with one.
Oh, most definitely. But I think one of the most active teams has been the Red Blacks. I think they have 33 different players acquired between extensions and external signings.
They've signed a lot of guys from the NFL. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I'm not sure 100% where they're going with that either. But I mean, they did add Eugene Lewis, William Stanback, Matt Schultz, Dustin Crum. They have a bit of work to do on the secondary, but for the most part, up front, I think they're looking decent.
Well, they still got Pickett, Darius Pickett. So he was a great defender for the Argos when they won the last Grey Cup before this past one. So yeah, there's a lot of work that's been done by Canadian Football League teams. Free agency is still going, but it's going to get interrupted by the draft. And then the draft is the next thing that becomes very important. If there's anything that's important in the Canadian Football League, it is the guy that throws the ball and the guys that have the maple leaf. So, and that draft means a lot to having success. Defense wins championships, but so does your Canadian contingent on your team. So that's going to be a great thing for, the CFL football. Looks really good. Let's talk about the Jays and really quickly, because I'm not really convinced they've made some really good moves. I'm not sure they're going to be in the hunt.
You know what? Honestly, with Vladdy Guerrero being the homegrown face of the franchise, he's set to become a free agent this fall unless he signs a contract extension with the Jays. He's willing to renegotiate, but he's probably going to be looking somewhere in the neighborhood of about $700 million, which is going to be huge. The Jays are currently, unfortunately, looking like they're in win now mode for this roster. They have a competitive window, but it's not going to be open for much longer. When you got guys like Kevin Gausman, Jose Barrios, Chris Baston, and Max Scherzer all trying to just stay healthy, they need to also be consistent for the team to bounce back.
Jays management has painted the window shut.
Yeah, well, knives are out for Bob for Ross Atkins as well.
If they don't do anything seriously good, if Rogers doesn't fire them, then Rogers is going to be held accountable, because the secret's out. They're a team that's not been managed well. The secret is out. So we'll see what happens in the coming season if they make some sort of progress. And they can't lean on the excuse they're the 5th highest paid team in the league, Aaron. 5th highest. You know who's in front of them? There's 3 teams right away: the New York and LA team, the won the World Series.
Yep.
And you know, Boston, of course. It's just something that the Jays have not been managed well. The best chances they've had to advance into the playoffs, they've screwed up because they didn't have faith in players that they brought in. That's the part that's most infuriating, is not making use of the players you have. All right. Now the Raptors, they made a big signing, Aaron, and I got to tell you, I'm happy for this reason. Last time they signed a top-notch player in the NBA there were concerns about his health, they helped invent a term in game management. They helped invent that term. And they went on to some pretty good things with a good NBA player that had issues with health. Maybe this is the same formula.
You never know. I mean, he's got a new deal worth $120 million over the next 3 seasons. That's an average of $40 million per season, just for those of you who.
And he could have made 130, Aaron. They talked him down. They talked him down $1 million lower than their young stud.
And here's the thing, though: 38.4% of his offense is made up of attempts between 10 feet to the 3-point line. His at-rim shot rate is at an all-time low of just 11.7% of his offense. There are certain aspects of his game that definitely need work, but there is also upside to having him on the team.
They don't have the Raptors do not have a designated scorer. He is a designated scorer. He's the guy that puts the points up. Now, is that going to cause a problem? Because, you know, you have obviously other players on the team. They've got a lot of high-paid players. Which high-paid player is going to be on the bench? Nobody wants to be that guy, because that guy doesn't make as much money as the guys who start. So that's going to be an interesting feature.
Oh, for sure. You know, and here's the thing: the Pelicans spent months trying to get rid of him with not a lot of interest. But, you know, now that he's got a substantial deal and he's in control of his own future by his player option, you know,
he has the player option. I think in 3 years, he has the option to move, to get out, to go elsewhere. Oh, let's talk about Hellebuck, and of course, he's going to start for the U.S. against Finland. It's going to be an interesting game.
Oh, most definitely. Now they're going to be on the ice tomorrow. That is definitely going to be interesting to see if he can carry his 920 level performance into something like the Four Nations Cup, where he's facing basically every team's best shooter. You know.
That's why I love this. This event is going to be fun. It's better than any All-Star game. You know, there's more players participating, but the way the players are going to play this event is not like an All-Star game, and that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking for like pride. This is national pride at work. This is an opportunity for all the players who play for their national team now. Haven't had a chance to do it at this level. I'm not trying to cast dispersions on the World Championship, you know, during the playoffs, but let's face it, you know, the best hockey players are still in the NHL. A fraction of them are peppered in for all the teams that are playing because they're out of the playoffs. So yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun, Aaron. Let's we got a few minutes real quick. Let's talk about the Flames. What's up with them?
Well, they're getting to the point now. Dustin Wolf has been playing incredibly well. The unfortunate thing is Dan Vladar, who's a pending unrestricted free agent, is most likely not going to be able to be moved. Now, the Flames were giving Vladar the tougher starts to the first half of the season and all the second halves of back-to-back scenarios. but he's got a 7-10-5 record with an 8.88 save percentage, which is borderline cuttable, and an inflated 3.07 goals against average. This contracts with Wolves 9.12 and a 2.63 goals against average. Because Wolf is playing so well, and unfortunately Vladar has not been, this sort of makes getting rid of him a little bit more difficult.
But has that opportunity escaped them?
It's possible. He's been relegated now to the backup role, but it is possible that someone could consider his usage and figure that there's still something worth rehabbing there and rebuilding there.
It's his worst. His best is still ahead.
That's my thinking. Most goalies bloom late, and Vladar is only 27 years old. So even if he does hit free agency, there is the very real possibility that he may get picked up. So we'll have to see.
Well, if when we talk about goaltenders and we talk about consistency, we're talking about a unicorn, and there's only one unicorn right now in the National Hockey League. That's Hellebuyck.
Oh, for sure.
Right? He's by far the most consistent and best goaltender in the league. There have been goaltenders who have played as well as him, and he's played as bad as some, but nobody's done it as prolonged as he's done it, as many times as he's done it in a season in the past few seasons. So they've got a good goalie, and you don't know. Goaltenders are basically they're lightning in a bottle for the most part.
They are voodoo, wizardry, and BS when it comes to.
They get a run going. They can, that's the whole key. Can they get that run going? Well, let's talk about the Oilers. And there's talk, there's chatter. What do they need before they go to the playoffs? And what do they need to make it all the way?
Well, now don't forget, this is just my opinion here, and just the opinion of Finn Marceau as well. Now the Oilers are a great team in a great position, but they're not perfect. Stan Bowman spoke with Pierre Lebrun of The Athletic last week, and they're according to that interview, the Oilers are targeting an extra left shot defenseman and a depth forward.
A left shot defenseman?
Yeah, a left shot defenseman, which is interesting.
Easy to find.
Well,
defenseman.
You'd like to think so, but they haven't been able to find one apparently. Some of the names being brooded about were Matthias Up. Now the Oilers do have Matthias Ekholm, Darnell Nurse, and Brett Kulak, but after that, the depth chart is kind of thin.
Oh yeah, Cody Cece's not there anymore.
Well, yeah, and Klingberg hasn't exactly been all that good either.
Your favorites, the human hand grenade.
Cece has gone further in the playoffs than any Maple Leafs player has.
There you go. There it is. That must have been hard to say.
Now they are trying to see if they can add Mario Ferraro as well as Carson Soucy. Those are some of the names that they've been talking about. Not to mention Brian Dumoulin, who's a two-time Stanley Cup champion. So there's those as well that they're looking at. When it comes to depth forwards here. They're kind of looking at Justin Brazeau, Jordan Greenway, and Trent Frederick. The Oilers might also be one of 2 or 3 teams that are in on Jake Evans and Joel Armia. So the trade deadline could be very, very interesting, especially now that the Habs have fallen as far as they have and have run into the issues that they have.
Absolutely. Talk to me about the Knuckleheads.
Well, there are a couple different predictions I'd like to make here. One that's realistic and the other that's unrealistic. I like to think that Elias Pettersson is absolutely going to go off. That is predictable and that is also realistic.
Which Pettersson?
Elias.
Elias, okay.
Not Elias or Richard. The Elias Pettersson is the guy that was responsible for getting JT Miller traded to New York. Let's put it that way.
The old one.
Now, his first matchup is going to be against top-heavy Canada. That means he's going to be going up against McKinnon, Crosby, and McDavid. We'll see how he looks at that. Antti Pennanen has also said, we don't know who's going to start for our first game against the States because we have 3 good goalies. Lankinen is currently the Canucks starting goalie, as fans wait to figure out what's going on with Thatcher Demko. But he's made himself a name in Vancouver, stealing games for the Canucks. He's with Jussi Saros and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen from the Buffalo Sabres on Team Finland.
And beating the Leafs.
Yeah, well, everybody beats the Leafs. We're apparently what's good for what ails you.
Even Zamboni drivers.
Sir, that was a low blow. True, but a low blow.
Okay.
And that's all I got for you today, Frank.
Oh, Aaron, that was sweet. So the Toronto Maple Leafs get a break. Some of the injuries of players other than the ones that are at the All-Star break, if you will, get a chance to recover, as do other teams. And when they come back, the NHL will continue in earnest, and it's going to be this is the time of year where the teams that are going to play well in the playoffs start to play well right now. That's my prediction. The teams that play well right now going into, February, March, April, will be ready to play in the playoffs. These are the teams that are not in the playoffs. There's those two. We've seen that year after year, and Florida won a cup that way. They were out of the playoffs and they went on a little run and they went right through to the playoffs and won a cup. So this is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting, Aaron. Thanks for doing this, buddy. I really appreciate it.
Always glad to, Frank.
He's Aaron William Freeland. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching. Enjoy the hockey. I know I'm going to. Just watching those great Canadian players playing together against those great American, great Finnish, and great Swedish players. Oh, hockey at its best.